monthly mood when posing for pictures at the G7 summit in Cornwall, England. And years ago, after then President George W. Bush made a verbal slip-up saying she had visited the U.S. in 1776 instead of 1976, she gently teased him during her opening toast at the White House State Dinner.
I wondered whether I should start this toasting when I was young.
Watch how she played along with the Obamas and her grandson Harry when she was helping Harry promote the Invictus Games, a competition for wounded warriors.
Prince Harry, remember when you told us to bring it at the Invictus Games?
Careful what you wish for.
Really? Please.
The Queen loved to delight those around her. Last year, when she was presented with a birthday...
Okay, I don't know who's watching me on here, but we're about to do a live on TikTok. Whoever's in there, just say hello if you can hear the audio. This is where the program is ultimately going to end up, but I just wanted to see how I looked. Purchased a really nice Canon. Shit, I don't want to fucking break it. I just got a really nice lens. Really nice camera. If I can even show that. We're going to be talking about, as you can see, cash bail elimination on TikTok. Got a really nice camera that I'm proud of. This is a Canon M50, which is specifically designed for what we're going to end up doing. Don, that's Don. I see you in the comments. Appreciate that. Yeah, got a nice Canon. So once all this is done, the goal is to be able to deliver far better content than we do on TikTok. It'll be in widescreen format. Oh shit, I may have broke this lens on this camera trapping it. It'll be in widescreen format. I got a monitor that's about 3 times the size of that. We're gonna be using far better microphones. I know the audio of this product is not good. Don P in a heterosexual kind of way, that's funny. I'm checking to make sure. I dropped my lens, brand new damn lens out the package, and I want to make sure I didn't break this damn thing. I'm not that's the problem, is I'm not a real good editor and all of that, and to deliver a good product online, you gotta be. And so it's a work in progress. A few of you guys have been donating to the program, and I've been obviously using some of my own cash. But the goal is to be able to, I mean, I enjoy talking to you guys, and a lot of you guys enjoy talking to me. So at the end of the day, yeah, it didn't break. We're good. So at the end of the day, the goal is to be able to deliver quality content. I mean, we have a good time in the comments talking and things like that. I enjoy talking to MAGA. You know how it works in regards to that. But I want to get the audio. That's going to be the first thing. We got to get better audio. And then, of course, now we got a camera that's capable of delivering 4K video. Paid a good grip for this camera. This camera actually allows you to go online and stream live without a computer. So this camera is pretty good. Once I get all, it's beyond my knowledgeable capabilities. I'm gonna admit that, but I will learn it. I mean, it comes with a nice size manual, and then hopefully we can deliver a decent product. So, like I said, I prefer to be on YouTube. YouTube does not censor as much as TikTok does. It allows folks to speak their mind a little bit more. I've had one video censored on TikTok, and all of my live streams from TikTok ultimately are placed here. So if you look on my Handsome Liberal YouTube page, all of those TikTok live streams are on here, plus little things, little skits and shit I do on my own. But YouTube does not censor as strongly as TikTok does. I believe TikTok actually has running censors while you are talking, because I've had shit censored right in the middle of a conversation. Now, it could be folks reporting you, I don't know, but I've had it happen right in the middle of a conversation. So the goal is to try to do it on YouTube where we can get more free speech enjoyment For you, those of you who watch my program, you know free speech is paramount. I'm a strong defender of the First Amendment. Second Amendment too, but First Amendment. And yeah, if we can do it here on YouTube, we can potentially do that better. They do trigger words plus people can report. Yeah, Don, that's exactly what I think is going on. Is probably some of both. Some trigger words such as talking about the COVID vax. I believe that's a strong trigger word. Certainly the LGBT community. I've stopped doing lives in regards to the LGBT community because every one of them were censored by TikTok. Every single one. You get a guest on TikTok and they're not necessarily favorable of LGBT issues in school and things like that, boom, you're gone from TikTok. So as opposed to getting the entire page taken down, I stopped really doing lives on LGBT issues, but it's a pressing issue. It's all over the news and it's worth talking about. It is worth talking about. This stuff is being taught to your children in schools and things like that. And yeah, it's a strong voter issue. You see what happened in Virginia. It changed an entire race. It changed an entire campaign or political race based on folks not wanting CRT and LGBT issues to be taught in school. Same thing's happening down there with Ron DeSantis in Florida. So I would like to be able to talk about that. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I'm gonna run this in the background just to see how it looks. But I'm about to go live on TikTok. So bear with me. I'm just going to change my charging cords because TikTok is on the phone. It's heavy on the battery. So if I do a 2-hour live on TikTok, the battery will no longer. You want to be dual mods? Don, you sure you want to be dual? You know, when you're a mod of my program, you've done a good job, and it's a pretty easy job because, as you know, I'm pretty open on censorship, so it shouldn't be that difficult. We may be to talk about it, but yeah, I'll see you on the TikTok side. This will be running in the background, but I will see you on the TikTok side. The minute I get this charger plugged in, I should be ready to go in regards to TikTok. And that's another thing I have to, with the camera, because right now on YouTube, I don't know how to flip the damn video. I didn't learn that on TikTok until about a week or so of doing live. So I got to figure out on YouTube how to change this video around because as you see, everything is backwards. On TikTok, one of the viewers on TikTok told me what to do to get that right. So I got to figure that out here on YouTube as well. So all of that, like I said, all of that's going to be a learning progress. I mean, I got a degree in electronics. I used to know a lot about gadgets, but I was out of the game for a minute and here I am. So I will catch you on TikTok. For you guys, we're going live in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. The Illinois the Illinois bail reform bill we're going to be talking about. So as folks begin filtering in on TikTok, talking about cash bail elimination. So let me go ahead and switch over from YouTube and start paying attention to what we're doing here on TikTok. Good evening, folks. It's your boy Tim, the Handsome Liberal. Tonight we are going to be discussing cash bail elimination and how you guys feel about that. What is cash bail elimination? I should have had my video queued up because the state of Illinois, as of 2022, earlier this year, decided to eliminate cash bail. And this is in regards to some very violent felonies. We're talking about stuff like second-degree murder and armed robbery and things like that. The governor of Illinois believes that cash bail is, I suppose, unfair, certainly targets minorities to some degree and people who are impoverished. How many folks are serving time right now simply because they cannot afford bail? So we're going to be asking you guys, how do you feel? Do you think that is something that should be adopted in other states? Illinois right now is the only state, as you see on the monitor behind me, with Illinois highlighted. Illinois is currently the only state that is doing this. However, you know how liberals work. One state could pick it up. Generally, it's California that starts new legislation and other states pick it up, but this one came from Illinois. Now, in 2003, the state of Illinois imposed a moratorium on the death penalty. There were so many inmates going straight from death row to complete innocence that they decided to pause executing folks in the state of Illinois. Now, as of 2011, 8 years later, they permanently banned the death penalty in Illinois. It was totally taken off the books. So Illinois does not have the death penalty. And here we are now 11 years later, and they're getting rid of cash bail elimination. Looking in the comments here. Appreciate that, Jack. Good evening to you. If you want to maintain the rights you still possess, then vote blue in the midterm, says Mike Stickman, 3-8. Well, in regards to voting blue, some would suggest let me turn this Bluetooth off. Some would suggest there is a red wave coming, but make no mistake about it, it has weakened. It has weakened. No matter who's analyzing the polls, who's suggesting what's going to happen in the election, whether it's Quinnipiac, Rasmussen, whether you look right or left, all of the polls show that the red wave has gotten weaker. Some are even suggesting the Democrats might hold on to the Senate and even be competitive in Congress. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. We all know after the 2016 election with Hillary versus Trump, you can't always trust the polls. But they are all showing the Democrats are making gains on the Republicans. It's not to say a red wave might not still happen. Just wanted to point that out to you. And by the way, obviously the biggest issue being the Republican SCOTUS, Supreme Court justices, deciding to overturn Roe versus Wade. That did not help, says number 45, President Trump. He stated that would not be good for the Republicans in the midterms. And as I rarely hold up the hat, I'm going to hold it up on that one. Trump was right. Trump was right. It is not going to be good for Republicans, at least from a point of rolling back Roe versus Wade. Like I said, it doesn't certify the Democrats, holding on to the House or holding on to the Senate, but I do believe when you look at, I believe right behind the economy, Roe versus Wade has now become the second most pressing issue among voters in the United States. It's that freaking big. So keep that in mind. And it's not just women suggesting that their rights are being taken away. It's a lot of Republicans in favor of rolling back Roe versus Wade. So both sides are voting on that issue. That's a really big issue, because if the Democrats get their way, then it's going to piss off obviously the evangelicals and the folks who believe in protecting the sanctity of life, because you're going to have abortions coming back nationwide if the Democrats get their way, because they're going to codify it federally. All right, looking in the comments. How sad is that, says Fun One. Sad from a state of rolling back Roe versus Wade, or sad from a state of protecting the sanctity of life to the point where there are no exceptions even for saving the life of the mother. Couple examples, obviously making it, I'll go right to the box, but obviously making the news recently was the 10-year-old in Ohio that was sexually assaulted and impregnated and could not terminate the life of the baby, because the state of Ohio has become a very strong pro-life state, and the 10-year-old child had to go to Indiana because the state of Ohio was going to force an assaulted 10-year-old to carry the baby to term. Another case we have is the African-American woman down in Louisiana that is currently pregnant with a child that doctors say will not even develop a full skull. The child is certainly not viable, but the physicians in the state of Louisiana are afraid to give her an abortion for the legal consequences they may face. These are very rare cases. This is not the norm by any means, but in a political climate as divisive as ours, the Democrats are going to plaster that shit all over the place. All right, going to the box. Benjamin. I believe we have talked before. We're talking about cash bail elimination, though. Violent felonies in the state of Illinois no longer imposing cash bail. What do you think about that, Benjamin? Good evening to you.
Here's what I just wanted to say to start off the bat. Looking sexy as always. It's a liberal. Good to see you. I was just listening to your. I was debating someone about abortion, and I came to this consensus. This would be, if I was in office, this is the legislation I would create. You ready to hear it?
I'm ready.
Here you go.
Give it to me.
So, number one, anyone under the age of 16 years old should be permitted to have an abortion, no matter what trimester it is. Number two, second and third trimester abortion should be banned unless there's a medical reason or there's a reason with the result of the pregnancy. There's a huge risk.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That contradicts your first one. You said anyone under the age of 16. Oh, okay, I get it. Never mind. Keep going. I get it now. I lost track. Get it. Go ahead.
So basically what we're doing is we're taking the argument, right, that most pro-lifers have, which is it's immoral, they use religion, whatever, and we're basically eliminating the pregnancy, whether it's a female or a male, whatever, not feeling pain. I think third trimester abortions, when they happen, the fact that the pregnant result of the pregnancy can feel pain is horrible, and the argument most people jump to is the majority of third-term abortions are a medical risk, whatever, that's fine, but then those that aren't, that's kind of an issue. There has to be a fine line drawn in the sand on these issues so we can come together and form common ground, and you have to try to appeal to both sides. I think that my argument is very reasonable. I don't think it's radical. I don't think it's far right. I don't think it's fascist. I think it's very fair.
Well, I guess anytime you pass a law that's telling someone what to do with their body, just like with the Second Amendment, it doesn't matter what law a Democrat passes in regards to your Second Amendment rights. If they follow it up by limiting your Second Amendment rights in any way at all, and they say, I think this is fair, you're going to be like, F off. Because you don't want anybody telling you what to do with your right to protect and defend your family. Well, the pro-choice crowd is going to view it just like you view the Second Amendment, where my bodily rights shall not be infringed upon. So I don't know if you can do it in any way that's fair to them.
Yeah, but to be fair, we do have pieces of legislation and laws that protect people from doing certain things, right? Like you can't allow yourself to be killed by someone else. Like cannibalism is illegal. You can't allow yourself to be eaten by someone else. You can't commit suicide. I mean, it's kind of obviously suicide's illegal, but if you die, there's not too much they can do.
Well,
but
yeah.
We do have, laws and regulations and stuff prohibiting people from doing certain things with their bodies. You can't walk around nude, okay, in the public.
That's a damn shame. That's a damn shame.
You can't. I know, bro. I wish I could just see you bare-ass naked downtown Chicago. It'd be really high insight to my
Slow down. Now, this ain't an LGBT discussion. Slow down. Keep going.
No, I think, we do have laws, like you can't, rape someone, like that my body, my choice argument doesn't apply there. Like, if you try to use the excuse, well, it's my body, you know what I mean? So
Right.
We do have things. I think personally, certain abortions are immoral and they should be illegal, and then certain should not. I would say that, there has to be exceptions because you can't get everything right, but I think if we have like a gray land in the sand,
Right.
a fine line in the sand, we have specific things to address the other side of the argument, because the biggest argument is, well, what if there's a medical issue? What if there's this issue? What if she's underage? Let's get pieces of law that protect those people, and then let's attack, the center of the argument, because if we fix those little issues, those little debate topics with pieces of legislation, then we'll be in a better sense of the argument.
So you're certainly not for areas that do not allow abortion even for the health of the mom. You're not for that.
As much as I portray myself to be a Republican, I'm also a human being, and I understand people's situations. I understand scenarios. I have morality as well. I don't just agree to face, just to get the general idea or to win over my party or to win over the general group. And I think most people feel this way. Most people would consider themselves moderates and not one party one way, one party another way. That's why we have to take issues like abortion and we have to attack it in a positive way, and we have to appeal to both sides, because then we're never going to get anywhere. right?
Well-
If we leave it one side, then everyone's going to be unhappy. We leave it another side, then the other half's going to be unhappy. We have to address the specifics. We have to address the details, and we have to appeal to each side on certain issues in order to find common ground. Just taking a stance and saying, no, screw the other side, they have no say, is wrong on both ends and for all arguments and ideas.
But you have to wonder, why on earth would the Republicans be in favor? I mean, because most of the country, even on the Republican side of the aisle, are in favor of allowing exceptions for rape or exceptions for the life of the mom. So why would some of these states have these provisions in there that are even unpopular to members of their own party, where you can't get out of it no matter what?
That's when it comes. Okay, so I think I've talked about this before, right? But I know you're anti-Trump, the Trumplicans, whatever you want to call them. But the Trumplicans, in my opinion, and from what I have seen, have the very same ideology that I'm sharing with you today. For the most part, it's more these older conservatives that are constantly forcing religion down everyone's throats. I'm a Christian, but I understand that my religion isn't the only religion that matters, and I understand that my religion shouldn't be the overall push for politics in an entire country. That is the older rhino Republicans that are pushing these arguments and making everyone else look bad. The majority of the modern Republicans, especially in the youth today, like myself, are, they don't care if who's marrying who. They don't care, they understand exceptions have to be made. They're not just thinking one way and completely dismissing the other side. You have to keep in mind it's these old geezers, okay, that are sitting there and pushing for strange things like, who gives a shit who's going to marry who? I don't know why Texas, for example, is pushing ending gay marriage. I don't know why Justice Clarence Thomas is pushing for that. I think he's being a little weird. He already got his little W, whatever, that's fine. But every time someone wins, if you notice this in politics, regardless of the side, every time someone gets their way, they push for a more extreme. It's never enough, and it's an issue.
That is true. Well, I will say this, because I talk to a lot of MAGA folks who suggest that the Democrats are the party of, the Klan, or the Democrats are intolerant and things like that. And I point to issues that you're talking about right now, where Texas is potentially going against LGBT rights. Right now, I believe it's Florida, or there's a state on the East Coast that is trying to actually overturn Juneteenth as a holiday. So when the MAGA folks,
that's radicalism, and you're going to find it in all parties. I think the main issue, to be honest with you, is the old geezers in each party. The argument for the Democrats and the racism would be implicated for the older Democrats, because they understand that the systems that they have in place will automatically take the African American and minority votes, and they don't care. It's the younger ones that are more lively minded, more likely minded, and more understanding on both sides. It's the old geezers, and we got to get them out, and we got to get new people.
I don't know.
From both parties.
I don't know if it's the older, because when I look at, for instance, the gentleman that was carrying the Confederate flag in the Capitol building on January 6th, he was not an old geezer. Neither was the guy with the Camp Auschwitz t-shirt on. It's not just old geezers that's in favor of this stuff.
I'm talking about like the people in positions of power.
Okay, all right.
Those people. And in regards to the Confederate flag, personally, when I see it, there's about a 97% for the wrong reasons. But then I see on TikTok, like, there's African Americans in Louisiana and stuff that are waving it proudly. It's just one of those things. I get where you guys are coming from, but it's like, it's just all of these topics, all of these situations, all of these debate topics, they have these weird exceptions, and it's so.
Well,
the argument is always using the smallest percentage of whatever the argument is to push their primary argument.
I mean, you got.
Third example. Well, what about
You got Americans that went over to the Middle East and fought on behalf of ISIS. That don't mean that's the norm. Any African American in 2022 that's waving around the Confederate flag, he's very similar to leaving America on January the 12th and going to see Al Qaeda and saying, I want to join. There's no denying that the Confederates, during that time where that flag was active, did not have the best interests of blacks in mind. So for any African American to wave that, it makes no sense to me. But listen, I got to move it on. I'll give you the last word, man.
My final point is that a lot of the chats right now saying get rid of the old geezers. I would agree on both sides, because the people that have been in politics for 20 and 30 years Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, regardless of the party, we have come to realize as American citizens that they're not really in it for us. They're in it for themselves. They're in it to profit on a financial standpoint and on a power standpoint. We need to get in newer faces. We need to get in people that don't have a history in politics. I don't like AOC, but it's not the worst idea to start getting the bartenders into politics. It's not the worst idea to start getting the construction workers into politics or the truck drivers into politics. It's time to get the people that are working the everyday lives, as most of us experience, into politics because they see the real world. These people that sit up on their pedestals and tell us how to live our daily lives, they don't see the real world. Let's get to the people that do and who are understanding and who know what it's like to be an everyday American citizen.
Yeah, that's well said. I don't disagree with that. And also, too, a lot of issues we face that we're going to vote on is oftentimes based on age and experience. And a 60-year-old is not going to be dealing with whether they want to have an abortion or not. So I do agree with that. But anyway, got to let you go. Appreciate you coming through.
All right, I'll see you later.
Absolutely a pleasure. Good talk, Benjamin. Okay, in regards to the actual topic, we kind of got off culture there. I want you guys to hear what happened in Illinois, because that's what we're going to be discussing what actually took place in Illinois. If I can get my shit together over here, it's been a long day, but this is going to be what they're talking about in regards to getting rid of cash bail.
College students who attend public universities. When the Illinois public college students declare...
Unfortunately, I got to pause that because that's not the right video. So, in just asking, violent crimes, committing a violent crime, which one is more important to you? Assuring that criminals are held accountable and brought to justice, or making sure no innocent man or woman is forced to do time incarcerated for a crime they didn't commit? Which one of those are more important to you? Scenario A or B? Scenario A, making sure criminals are held accountable for their action and face justice, or scenario B, making sure no American that is innocent of a crime ends up punished and incarcerated for it and for any length of time? Which scenario is more important to you? I'm asking that question because whether you are in favor of cash bail or not, you have to choose between one or the other. There is no way to get both. Meaning, if you have a bail system, which we do in 49 of the 50 states, you get arrested for a crime, the judge can impose bail on you, and if you cannot afford that bail, you are going to spend time in jail until your trial comes up. And then if you're found guilty, you're set free. Meaning, if you, let's say for instance, you're accused of, serious bodily harm to someone, or you're accused of grand theft auto or something, and the judge gives you a bail that you cannot financially afford. So you spend time, or you can't get a bail bondsman, or however the process works, but you end up spending time in jail because you can't afford to bail out. And then when your trial comes up 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years later, you are found innocent. You are acquitted of the crime. You're let out, but the time you served in jail waiting for that trial, you can't get that back. You cannot get that back, folks. You cannot get back the relationship that you may have lost with your wife or husband, the children that grew up without you, the job you lost. All of that stuff is gone, even though you were charged for a crime, thrown in the county jail, and held into trial in which you were found innocent. You do not get any of that back. That is the system we currently have now in 49 of the 50 states, with the exception now of Illinois that does not have a cash bail system. So that's why I asked which one is more important, holding criminals accountable and making sure they get punished, because the folks who are against the cash bail system, and I'll go to the box, the folks who are against the cash bail system do not like it because if a person is charged with a violent felony, because there's no bail, they're set back on the streets until trial, meaning they could reoffend. But keep in mind, before trial, they have not been found guilty. They are only accused of a crime. The police, prosecutors accuse a lot of folks of crimes that the charges end up dropped or dismissed or they beat the charges. And right now, what's the biggest topic for my MAGA folks? Trump being charged with crimes over and over again. Multiple impeachments, January 6 hearings going on. Now he's got Merrick Garland plus New York, Georgia, Arizona, and other shit. So I just want to point that out. Anyway, we're going to the box. We got Free For All. Good evening, Free For All. I'm really sorry I don't have this damn video queued up I wanted to play for you guys. It sucks. Free For All, good evening.
Hey, what's up, man?
None at all. I got a program going on and I just came out here and I wasn't quite prepared, but we're talking about cash bail elimination in the state of Illinois. Do you favor that? You think that's a good idea?
Man, I've heard of it. I believe it. Is it called the Safety Act?
Yes, it is. The Safety Act. It was implemented as of January 1 of this year, and the Republicans in Illinois, which is obviously a blue state, are trying their best because Chicago has a lot of crime. There's no denying Chicago is a heavy crime city. They want.
Hey, I lived in Chicago for 10 years, so
Okay.
I'm very aware.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I've lived there for 30. So they want bail returned. However, I asked the question, which one is more important to you? Making sure criminals are held accountable and brought to justice, or ensuring that no innocent man is ever punished and incarcerated for a crime they are not guilty of? You have to choose between one of those. Because if you pick a bail system versus a system where we eliminate bail, you are making a choice.
Right. I think the most important question that you got to ask, and are there statistics to back it up, are one, we all know that Chicago is a city riddled with crime, right?
Right.
And two, how many of these arrests lead to convictions, right? And how many of these convictions are overturned?
Well,
Right?
what about
how many of these arrests lead to a verdict of not guilty,
Yeah.
or a post verdict or an appeal that leads to said person being found acquitted or not guilty of said crime?
What about the phrase, wait. What about the phrase, one person is too many? If you got one person that spends 3 years in jail waiting for trial, and when you're talking about violent felonies, you can spend there are people who have spent 2-3 years in the county waiting for trial. Even if you do that to one person, what about folks who indicate that just doing that to one person is one too many, as opposed to what you're saying, how many folks go through this?
I mean, to that, I would honestly say that. I don't think that anyone. I don't think it's right that anyone has to go through that. But in a city that is riddled with crime,
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's a necessary evil, because I think the statistics point more towards I think the statistics point more towards the majority of people that are arrested for these crimes are guilty of these crimes, right?
Yeah, but let's just be honest. Even if it's 5 or 10% of people who are charged with violent crimes are found innocent or exonerated, and I believe the numbers are higher than that. But let's just say it's 5%. That's still going to represent hundreds of innocent people spending time in jail.
Well, I think we can also look at this from a different standpoint, right? I think we can look at it from the standpoint of, do you have a lawyer, right? Do you have an attorney?
Yeah.
And if you have a paid attorney, and he or she is a well-paid attorney, it doesn't matter who you are. If your attorney is well-paid, well-known, and in the court system a lot, you're more than likely going to get away with your crime.
Yeah, but wait a minute. When you talk about having a paid attorney, that's not even part of the discussion. If you can afford a good attorney, you can also afford bail. So this is not even going to apply to you. We're talking about the people who represent the majority of folks in prison or in jail. Poor people and often minorities because they can't afford this system. In other words, not only are you potentially holding innocent people, it's going to disproportionately affect people who are, less well off financially as well. And obviously it's going to be people of color. So you got to look at it from that angle too.
So why is it obviously going to be? And this is not, I'm not coming at you in any sideways kind of way, but why is it that you say it's obviously going to disproportionately affect people of color?
Because we don't have any money. We represent the largest group of poor people.
Wait. I think that right there is where I kind of lose you sometimes.
Sure, go ahead.
So you say when you say we don't have any money, do you have money?
If I got charged with a violent felony and I needed to come up with $50,000 or $100,000, no, I probably couldn't do it.
Me either.
Okay. So, that is what I'm saying.
I would say at least 80 to 90% of this population, if they needed to come up with 50 to 100 grand, could not do it.
Okay. Well,
so that has nothing to do with color.
Okay. Well, the point I'm trying to make, and I said 50 grand. I gave you a pretty high ass number. You got people sitting in jail that can't afford $5 grand. I mean,
I'm not sitting in jail, and I can't afford $5 grand right now.
Well, let me just say it as clear as possible. When you talk about who are the poorest in this country, African Americans are going to be they're going to represent the lion's share percentage-wise of poor people. And when you talk about the criminal justice system, money matters. That's why I'm saying it's going to disproportionately affect people of color. They are the poorest group among us.
Well, I feel like you're being disingenuous when you say that, because if you look at who represents the amount of welfare in this country, it's white people.
Okay.
White people represent the most of pretty much every statistic based on the sole fact of population.
Okay.
So
I didn't. Okay.
It's a little bit disingenuous.
Well, it's not disingenuous. I didn't throw.
Black
Okay.
people aren't poor. Black people aren't poor by color.
Okay.
And nor are white people, nor are anyone else.
Let me clear this up.
Poverty is a thing.
Okay.
Right?
Let me wait.
Because people are black. Doesn't
Okay.
Make them poor.
Let me clear it up. There's other factors I didn't throw in there. Now that you're pressing me on it, I have to throw them in there. The African American crowd is not only poor, they are over policed. When you talk about the whites that are on welfare, living in rural America, the police aren't stopping and frisking them. So even if they are committing crimes, if I'm walking down the street with an illegal gun or a bag of smack in my pocket, and you stop and frisking more people that look like me and letting the white guys go past, because whites use drugs just as much as blacks do, but you're not stopping and frisking them. Wait a minute. So in our neighborhoods, they're policing more, but here's another huge factor that even the police, governors, and people in power admit that under the same circumstances, blacks receive harsher sentences, stronger fines, and things like we're talking about that make you end up incarcerated. I didn't bring those factors up, but when you started pressing me to make the argument correct, you're right, I have to throw those in there. But that is why you're seeing more black people incarcerated than whites.
But are we throwing in crime statistics, right? I think we got to be honest about the control factors. if we're talking about studies, right?
Mhm.
And here's the thing. I'm one who's very solid about control factors.
Okay.
Right. So if we're talking about studies, we have to understand that the control factors have to be addressed.
Okay.
So when we're talking about the incarceration of a populace, we also have to visit the crime statistics of a populace, right?
Right.
And then we have to understand, why is this crime present? So there are so many factors that, I know you or your audience will probably tell me, as a white man, I'm not able to talk about this, right?
So you can't hear. Yeah, I'm First Amendment all day, every day. You can tell me whatever you think, even if it's stolen. Even if you tell me I'm full of shit, you can say that on this program.
No,
Continue.
you know I've never said that.
Okay.
I've been on quite a few times.
Fair
I've
enough.
never said
All right,
that.
go ahead and state your point, though.
Well, we have to talk about why crime is present in certain populations.
Okay.
And I think there's a very apparent reason why crime is not only present in let's take black out of it, and let's just put in poverty, right? People of poverty. People of poverty are told that if the father is not present in the home, then the mother can collect money by not having the father present. And that is true in any race that you look at.
Okay.
If you eliminate the father from the home, then the government will reward you for doing so.
Yeah.
They will give you.
I am aware of that. Yeah, I'm aware of
You
that.
eliminate a powerful, or I'm sorry, a male leadership, a good solid male leadership from your home. When you eliminate that, you are more than 10 times more likely as a child in that home to end up doing criminal activity.
So let me ask you this then. Okay, I get your point. So let me ask you this. During the war on drugs, which essentially everybody admits targeted African Americans at a greater rate, is it possible that, okay, so is it possible, even with you admitting that, because most of the folks arrested in the drug game were males, is it possible that by targeting African Americans more than other groups, you removed fathers from the home, which is what you're pointing out, that could also be leading to the crimes we're facing today, because children are growing up without dads that were disproportionately targeted that were African Americans?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I absolutely
All right.
agree with that. And
All right.
that crime bill, that 94 crime bill was not only pushed by a certain political party, but we can name probably 5 people in office right now in said same political party that pushed that crime bill.
Yeah. Well, and that would be the Democrats. However, we have to state that we had George H.W. Bush in there, Ronald Reagan, and all. None of them fought to get it undone. So both sides were totally game with doing that. Neither side can be viewed as a villain or a hero, because both sides was down with the program. So I gotta move it on though, man. Appreciate you coming through.
Yes, sir.
All right, good talk, free for all. Okay, looking in the box. And that's what we're asking, folks. We're asking if Illinois deciding to eliminate cash bail. Why would they do this? They believe the police often overstep their boundaries. They believe a lot of folks who are in jail simply because they're poor. You got charged with a crime. You got a bail. The judge gave you a bail. You can't afford to pay it. You have to sit in jail until trial. And if you are found not guilty after spending 6 months in jail waiting to trial, a year in jail, some people spend as much as 3 years in jail waiting for trial. You do not get those 3 years back. Generally, the system does not give you a penny for the 3 years you spent in jail. Nothing. So the relationship you may have lost with your wife, not seeing your children grow up, maybe you lost your home, you certainly lost your job. You don't get any of that back. State of Illinois trying to eliminate cash bail obviously are not focusing on the fact that you could commit a violent crime, let a person out the same day and they may go commit another crime. They're not focusing on that. They're focusing on the possibility of innocents serving time that did not commit the crime. In this country, which one would you rather focus on? Ensuring a criminal does not reoffend, or ensuring an innocent person doesn't do a day in jail that they don't deserve? Which one is more important to you? That's the decision you have to make, because that's what we're dealing with. Bionic Man Keith. And by the way, folks, tap the screen. This is a small crowd in here this evening. You're having an intimate evening with the handsome liberal, apparently. Less than 100 of us in here, but if you could get your boy likes up to 10,000, bring me more MAGA, we might be to set this party off a little bit more. Appreciate you guys rolling with me. Bionic Man, good evening.
Typical Democrat Republican bullshit once again.
Tell me what's on your mind. Elaborate on that.
They can't ever compromise on anything.
How do you compromise on this, though? How do you compromise on whether to have bill or not?
You have non-violent crime and you have violent crime.
Okay.
To me, you have to separate this. You cannot look at like child molestation, rape, and murder against drug crimes.
Wait, do you realize how many men are falsely accused of rape?
Sure.
Okay.
But you're talking about, okay, then eliminate that. Okay. What about child molestation? What about murders?
Okay. I can agree potentially with offending children, because children are the most innocent among us. There's not a lot of children making up phony claims. However, murder, there's a lot of people who have went down for murders they didn't commit. So even with murder as violent, I mean, that's like the supreme crime you can commit in terms of violent. There's a lot of folks who serve time for murders they didn't commit. That happens a lot.
And we've had no bail systems where people have been let out and then they recommit another murder.
Yeah. Which is why I asked the question. Right. And that's why I asked the question, which one is more important to you? Making sure a person charged with a violent crime is not in a position to reoffend, or making sure a person that is innocent is not spending time in jail that they don't deserve? Which one is more important? You have to make a decision. There is no middle ground in this.
I mean, we've had cops that have been killed because a guy's been let out,
Yeah.
Out of jail. We've had instances where a guy's been let out, no bail, goes and commits a crime. They arrest him again, let out again, arrested again. There was a case in California where a guy committed 7 crimes in a day.
Wow.
It's like, it's a revolving door.
But
Like it's a joke.
let me say it this way. When a guy is charged with a violent crime and no bail or gets a slap on the wrist and he reoffends, you hear that all over Fox News, OAN, the right-wing networks, the politicians talk about it all day, every day. However, when a guy is charged with a violent crime, spends 2-3 years in the county jail, is found not guilty or exonerated from the crime, nobody talks about that on the media. That doesn't mean you haven't seriously hurt someone, maybe had a child growing up without a dad and a wife without a husband. We just don't talk about it. But make no mistake about it, that happens to a lot of people. We just focus on what you talked about. We do not want an offender to reoffend. Innocent people that spend time in jail, we don't talk about them. Nobody's concerned about that. So that's what Illinois is looking at.
What happens if we catch the guy on video dead to right, and then he gets off on no bail and gets to walk?
Well, the judges do have discretion. The law is not set in stone where the judge, like with the drug laws where they had mandatory minimums and 3-strike laws where the judge had no power. The law said, you got this, you must do this. The law in Illinois is not that way. The judge still has the power under certain circumstances to impose bail. It's just a stronger amount of scrutiny, but a judge under certain circumstances still can impose bail.
I mean, I'm one of these people that, I worked in corrections. I don't believe drug offenses. I am always one of these people that felt like drugs was a disease.
Okay.
Throwing people in prison for drug offenses is no different than throwing somebody in there for alcoholism.
Yeah, it's a drug.
And to
Right.
me, it's ridiculous.
Right. They're both a drug.
It's like you should be, and I'm not talking about like the guy who's out there selling kilos of cocaine.
Right.
I'm talking about like the guy who, and more you see states that are being more lenient on this. California, Oregon, where, they're lessening these crimes because they see that it's more of a disease and I'm not saying they're legalizing it, but they're decriminalizing it.
Right.
Where they're not throwing people in prison over drug offenses.
Yeah, but to some degree, that comes with knowledge. Like in 2022, we now know that marijuana is probably it's not even as harmful as cigarettes, which are 100% legal. But when they imposed these war on drugs laws back in the 1980s, they were showing, this is your brain on drugs and it's going to lead your kids. And, marijuana was a gateway drug to your children becoming heroin addicts. But now we've had 20, 30, 40 years and we can tell that most marijuana users are not deciding to pick up a needle and start injecting themselves. So a lot of this is fear-based. Like what we're talking about now. If you remove the cash bail system, you're going to have a bunch of criminals committing more and more crimes. That's the fear of it, which is why people don't want to do it.
And I don't understand right now that the Democrats have 100% power for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Why the feds, why it's still federally a crime for marijuana. They have the power, Biden has the power to overturn that.
It's something when it comes to the power he has, even though the Democrats control the House and Senate, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema has made it clear that power is only by a razor-thin margin, such as you would think that a George Floyd criminal justice reform bill would be a shoo-in for Democrats, and it failed. It failed. So my guess is if Biden tried to legalize marijuana nationwide, you might have some Democrats in there that are operating in red states that wouldn't support that as well. Because that George Floyd bill, you would expect Democrats to overwhelmingly be in favor of that, and it failed.
But once again, you don't have to legalize it. You can decriminalize it.
What do you mean? Elaborate on that.
You don't. Portugal did this like 20 years ago, where they didn't legalize the drug, but you don't start throwing people in prison for it.
Okay. Well, but if you got marijuana on you, that's a state crime. If you don't legalize it, you're still leaving it up to the states to make their own decisions. Now, if the federal government said marijuana is legal throughout the land, then it would prevent the states from doing that. But if you simply decriminalize it, like, go ahead.
Right, the state has the power to legalize it, to sell it, but by making it federally decriminalized, you're not going to go to federal prison.
Okay. Yeah, most people serving time for marijuana are not in federal prison. Most of them are in jail in the state. The state locks up a lot of people for drugs. So even if you decriminalize it federally, the right-wing states are still going to impose state charges on you.
Well, I mean, then they need to legalize it then.
That's what we're talking about, and I don't think Biden has enough members of the Democrat Senate to get that done, and I don't think the Republicans would help him do it. I mean, if he becomes a president who can put on his resume that I made marijuana legal, that's a huge step towards winning young votes in the future for Democrats. The Republicans are not going to help him do that, even if they agree with it. Just like the Universal Care Act. Most Americans that have that don't want that to go away now. But you're not going to help Obama do something like that and allow that on his resume. So my guess is...
You gotta try.
Yeah, okay, all right. I agree with that, but I don't think it would succeed.
You know, the answer is always no until you try, right?
Yeah. Well, his criminal justice reform bill was met with a no. So, I mean, listen, these guys at least are savvy enough to talk to senators and representatives behind the scenes and ask them, if we do this, can I be assured I have your vote? My guess is they've probably tried that already and realized it would be a failure. So the last thing you want to do as a president or as a politician is put up a bill that you know ahead of time you don't have the votes for and take the embarrassing hit of your bill failing. If you know it's going to fail by talking to these people privately, why submit it?
I think that more and more this needs to be taken away from the politicians' hands, and it needs to be put into the voters' hands.
I agree with that.
More because you're putting it into too much of a few people's hands, and let's face it, our politicians are a bunch of idiots.
I agree, but here's the issue. No matter what you do in terms of law, you're affecting somebody else on the other side. And in our country, there are people who make money off of incarceration. So every time you legalize something, you're taking money out of their pocket. There's a lot of people that have done time for marijuana. If you legalize marijuana, the prison industrial complex is not going to be happy about that because you're costing them inmates. They make money off the people making phone calls, the food they purchase in penal institutions, because the food they serve them is often outdated and unrecognizable. So they fight over things like ramen noodles and shit like that are greatly marked up. Somebody is making money off of all of that stuff. So when you start reducing inmates,
judges that have been busted for sending inmates to prison,
and that too, the Pennsylvania judge sending children into incarceration and things like that. I mean, we're a capitalist country, and folks, you know, while we're downing socialism and things like that, oftentimes people don't realize capitalism can be nasty as hell. If everybody is only focused on money, folks will do some very immoral shit. And that happens in this country, up to and including locking people up, not giving people health care that they need to save their lives and all of that because, well, it's going to cost me too much money. I mean, if you're chasing a dollar.
He goes into like a Walmart and they steal like a TV that costs $500 or whatever the hell it is, and then you do 6 months in jail for that. I mean, the average cost in California is $45,000 a year to house an inmate. That's what it costs. I used to work for the Department of Corrections. I know what it costs for an inmate in California. That's insanity.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you're
somebody in jail for that kind of thing.
And that is why you're starting to have a lot of liberal cities that are starting to go away from solving every problem with jail time. It's so expensive. Like you said, it's not only is it expensive, but because we do not rehabilitate folks that are incarcerated, you actually start processing better criminals. People come out of jail no longer afraid to get locked up. Oftentimes they've been able to affiliate with folks inside, and you literally process better criminals. So the liberal states, unlike the red states still believe in locking people up for as long as possible for any crime they commit. But the liberal states are starting to look at it like, there has to be a better way than just locking people up all the time. But I gotta move it on, Bionic Man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a screwed up system. The system is broke. You created a system of theft in California because, on the other hand, you have a $900 theft program in California where you can steal up to $900 and there's no charges brought against you.
Wow.
That's why you can walk into any store in the state of California and you can steal up to $900 and they don't stop you from walking out of the store.
Damn. I don't know what to say about that. That's awful. That is fucking awful. All right, I gotta go though.
You create a whole different system.
Yeah.
It has to be done one way or another.
I do not disagree with that at all. Good talking to you, man.
Keep up the good work, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for the accolades. Looking in the comments, no, it's a misdemeanor. $900 a misdemeanor. even in Illinois, I thought, what was it, $300? Theft of $300 was a felony. Now, in regards to it being a misdemeanor versus a felony, do I believe if you steal a $900 TV, you should still be paying for that criminally for, what do you pay for a felony? About 7 years? How long does a felony stay on your record? 7 to 10 years? No. I don't think you should be punished 10 years later for stealing something that, costs $700-800. Also, it's going to obviously stop you from getting a hell of a lot of jobs and things like that. So, and once again, the liberal states are leading the progressive pack in no longer allowing or requiring employers to ask you if you have a felony. It's just, I guess the way I would look at it from the liberal side of, my own liberal analysis is that not only do we believe jail time solves everything, we also make it very difficult, or at the very least challenging, for ex-cons to get their life back together. You put a guy in jail for whatever period of time he's done. He gets out of jail, and you got all of these limitations and all this shit hovering over his head, demanding that he navigate through all of these hurdles, or you're going to send him back to prison. Well, the end result, just like in anything in life, the more hurdles you put up, the more people are going to fail at something. I don't care if you're running down a track at high school, the more hurdles you put up, the more people are going to trip over some of them hurdles. And we put a lot of hurdles in the way of ex-convicts. You got them going to halfway houses where you're charging them, a fourth of their salary. And everybody knows that ex-convicts don't make much money. You guys making minimum wage or slightly above that. And you got them paying for the halfway house, restitution to the victims. Maybe he has child support or something thrown in there. And he's making 12 or 13 bucks an hour. And you expect that guy who has developed a life of committing crimes to go straight and navigate through that bullshit. Something that even the typical honest American would have trouble navigating. And that, it shouldn't surprise you that some of his buddies come up to this, man, you're starving. Why don't you get back in the game? Why don't you move some product? You're starving over there. We know you're making $12 an hour and the government's taking 30% of that. Why don't you get back in the game? How long is he going to be able to hold that off when he's working 40 hours a week and bringing home $200 or some shit? Well, that's the hope. That is the hope of a lot of state penal institutions, is that he fails. We get another person in the cell, we get our federal subsidy, and we continue making money. That's the way our system is set up. Home of the brave, land of the free. Modern colonizer, friend of the program. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. Nevia says, better to have a clear conscience. I do agree. It's nice to be able to go to sleep with a clear conscience, but an empty stomach, sleeping under a bridge or somewhere because you can't afford to live after they take all of that money out of your check. If you're damn near starving, is your conscience really clear when you're worried about money all the time? What do you think, modern colonizer?
I used to be on that side of the bridge there, and no, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, we want to hold people accountable for their actions, but if you give me enough hills to climb, I'm going to do things the wrong way.
Right. I agree. I've never been arrested in my life, and I gotta say that there are only so many hurdles you're going to put in front of me before I start thinking of other shit that might not be on the up and up to get around it. I agree with you 100%, man.
Yeah, and people who live too comfortable of a life, but so they don't know what we're talking about, but they've seen the movie Heat. Do you remember the brother who got out of jail and he's
that's the Allstate guy. That's one of my favorite movies. I can almost quote that whole movie. Yeah, I know it exactly. Yeah, he got shot in the Lincoln driving down. They hit him with a shotgun. He was helping them rob the bank. He was a getaway driver. Yeah, I'm totally familiar with that movie.
And I mean, you feel for the guy because he's over there doing his parole the right way, and he's working for this jerk who's taking money out of his pocket.
A quarter of it. Yeah, that guy was taking 25% of his income. Yep, I remember
And
that.
at the drop of a hat, he was like, "Okay, I'll
Yeah.
go with you and make that money." You know,
Yeah.
and for some people that's just a movie, but in the real world, that's the truth. That when it comes to like a felon having served their time and gotten even with the house, right? So as we move along in the conversation, my main concern is going to be about protecting innocent people.
But if you serve time in jail for a crime you didn't commit until trial and you're ultimately let out, isn't that an innocent people? Isn't that somebody that's innocent as well?
Oh, absolutely. And
Okay.
I want to spend my energy preventing them from getting even to the other side of the bars, right? But for people who have actually committed their crimes, but they've gotten square with the house, right? They did their time. There's a lot of things we impose on them that we are expecting them to recommit, and it's pretty simple science.
Yeah.
If people think no, it needs to be harder on them, then why are they out? What was the sentence? It wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? So.
In other words, once a person has done their sentence, leave them in hell alone. If they are that violent and that much of a danger to society, keep them in jail. But once you let them out, leave them the hell alone.
How do you expect to be safe amongst that person who has been institutionalized if you've handcuffed the hell out of them? I mean, when it comes to firearm ownership, I think that's definitely, as a libertarian, I think it's definitely okay to still ban a violent offender. Say you just absolutely beat the living hell out of somebody. You took a crowbar and they gave you 10, 20 years when you get out. That would be the type of person I don't think should possess a handgun.
Well, let me say this from this angle. When you look at the folks in this country that commit violent crimes, it's generally military-aged males of all races. Military-aged males. Anybody 45 years of age and under, generally 18 to 25. Certainly when you look at even the mass shootings, it's 18 to 25-year-olds. The point I'm trying to make is, if a guy has served decades in jail, when he gets out at 60, 65 years old, even in his 50s, he's not that guy that went in at 19 or 20. Even if he was really, like you mentioned, beat the hell out of somebody. You don't generally hear of 55, 60-year-olds picking a crowbar up and beating the hell out of somebody. It's just not the same dude.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think everybody comes out Morgan Freeman mature, but absolutely after, a couple decades in prison, you're a different guy. And I mean, that kind of stuff needs to be taken into account, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody between 18 and 25 makes great decisions, So especially when you go throw a little alcohol and a little bar fight in the mix, it could easily turn into a life sentence. So, the short of it all is we're just too hard on people who have gotten square with the house and have done their time. So that needs revamping up. So earlier in the conversation, you'd asked the guy what's more important. Okay, so if I understand correctly, in Illinois now it's a no bail system and it's going to be judge discretion on a lot of the more serious.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
I think it's a lot easier to win a jury over when you show up in a limousine in a suit like Steve Bannon's going to be doing on his trial. Right?
That's fucked up. And that's awful, too, because most people can't afford to do that. That's horrible.
Right. And when you show up in an orange jumpsuit suit and shackles, the jury's going to perceive you another way, So, I mean, I do keeping certain people out of jail before trial, because we have the right to an expedient trial, and so it's one thing, I guess, if it's the defense team pushing for continuations and stuff like that, but they're supposed to have pretty much all of the evidence they're going to use against you in court by the time they've indicted you or charged you, right? So, they're still going to collect more stuff, but they have to have enough that would be court worthy to charge you. So the rest of it, I guess, would be on the defense team. I don't understand the legal system perfectly enough to know why continuations happen and why a trial can take 2 years to get to trial.
Well, evidence. Well, oftentimes the trial takes a long period of time because the defense is delaying it in hopes that witnesses will forget things or pass away or move away, hoping that maybe other evidence will come out. So it's not always the defendant wanting to spend 3 years in jail. Sometimes it's his counsel telling him it is far better for you if we go to trial down the road as opposed to now while everybody's memory is fresh and things like that. So it's a tactic.
Right. That all being said, I mean, I still don't think, serving a year in jail before you've, had your trial, I don't understand what's right about that. I'm just saying, if it were me and I was like, hey, I'm ready to go to trial.
Okay.
And they're like, no, not 6 months. You're like, wait, where does the Constitution fall in this fair and expedient
Well, shit.
conversation? And that's where I do agree with the no bail system because, you're taking, it's usually going to be the father out of the household.
Yeah.
Let's just assume perfect world, it's mom, dad, and 2 babies, right?
Right.
So you've already got that going on. But then jail's not as bad as prison, but jail's still pretty dangerous.
Well, that depends on who you ask. I follow a lot of convicts that have YouTube channels. Your Big Hurt, Larry Lawton, Lockdown 23 and 1. I follow a lot of these channels, and they'll tell you a lot of them prefer prison because in prison you have some type of normalcy. You have a cell, you have a home, and things like. Whereas in jail, it's not really. There's no certainty to it. Some people, like in Chicago, for instance, in Cook County, a lot of inmates sleep on the floor, so they don't have beds or anything. I mean, it's far more tacky. Apparently, the food and things like that cost a lot more in jail. It's not as stable, I guess, for lack of a better term, but it's not as stable as prison life. In prison, you got a job, so you got more of a routine life. In jail, it's very fluid. You don't know what's going to happen from day. The people coming in and out changes a lot more, whereas in prison, you can develop friendships and things like that because if you're in prison, everybody's going to be there for a while. In jail, a person may come and be gone tomorrow. One person might be there for 6 months. Somebody else might be there for 6 days. So it's just a rotating environment. So a lot of folks actually will suggest to you that prison is better. You get to play ball, lift weights, and all of that. In jail, you just kind of sit there.
Yeah, fair enough. And in prison, you got shot callers that keep the structure going and everything like that. But I guess what my point was, and some people answered it for us, we've got Miss Michelle over here who says, oh, well, don't drop the soap. Smiley face.
That's not nice.
Medina saying they get a jail husband. You know what? I think it's a rational statement for a lot of us to say people that we absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, are convicted. We're not too concerned about their welfare. Some of the worst of the people, I get that. But imagine that is your husband being accused of a crime he did not do, and he comes back with a different gauge of a beehole. Okay?
Wow.
These are the things I'm talking about with, keeping innocent people out. And I guess what would my answer be?
Yeah.
I thought about it while I was in the queue. There's only one cop I can name planting evidence, and this is 30, almost 30 years ago now, Mark Furman. I cannot name another cop by name that we know. You can't tell me there's all these innocent people in prison, which we've had this conversation before. If you had asked me 10, 15 years ago, and I watched Innocence Project or something like that, where they talk about how many innocent people are actually on death row. I go, you full of it. I don't believe it. These days, I absolutely believe it.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm getting at is, you cannot have all these innocent people in prison, and there's not a single cop you can name that is in prison for planting evidence and ruining lives.
Yeah. Well, they do catch some of them, but you're right. When cops commit crimes, they do not get treated the same way as citizens do because the bar for holding them accountable is so damn high. Oftentimes they get to retire or they get to resign and go to another department or something like that. But there's a lot of cops out there that have planted evidence. It's insane the number of cops out there that have been caught. That's not, obviously the number that have been accused is even far greater. But the ones that have been caught, there's a lot of cops out there that have been caught planting evidence.
Let's just use some anecdotal numbers, right? Let's just say, do you by chance have a ballpark prison population in America? Probably about
2 million. About 2 million.
Yeah.
2 million are incarcerated.
Okay. Let's just use a very conservative number of 10% innocent. I think that's a very fair guess.
And that's a lot of people. You're talking about 200,000 people.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's a handful of people who are wrongfully convicted, but the cop did not think he was doing anything wrong. He thought he had his guy. I get that, but that number can't be more than 10%, right? I mean, cops this is their fucking job. They do this for 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They know when they know. So what you're saying is you've got potentially 180,000 cops out there, or investigators, or what have you. I mean, I know you can double up on it, but we're just throwing random anecdotal numbers, right? So 180,000 cases where the cops planted evidence, messed with evidence, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And I can name one.
Well, yeah, you can only name Mark Furman because that trial was so publicized with O.J. Simpson and things like that. But in most cases, if a cop plants dope on you and his body cam or somebody at the scene catches him on video and he ends up, obviously you're going to be set free and get some type of a settlement. That doesn't typically make national news. So when you say you can only name one, it's because bad cops don't make the news as much. Like everybody knows who Derek Chauvin is, but Rodney King got his ass whooped. Try naming the cops that did it. We don't know them. Same thing with Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland and all of these folks. Tamir Rice. You can go down the line. Try naming the cops that did it. They don't get. Oftentimes they try to protect the names of them. So there's a reason why you don't know the names of bad cops. They don't really publicize it that heavily.
I just thought of something funny. I'd be scared if you did know the names of the cops who in the Rodney King beating, because I think you'd have posters of them fuckers on your wall. You know what I mean? If you didn't know their names.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. Lee CPA in the comments is saying, "Why am I not showing up as live?" Is that anybody else seeing the same thing? Because I'm wondering why my numbers this evening have been so low. Normally it's about 3 to 4 times as many people in here. And I've been wondering that even though the likes are well over 10,000 at this point, I mean, has anybody else noticed that as well? Yeah, everybody's saying that. That's weird. I didn't see you as live.
I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but maybe in the last month or two, where it shows me there's 5 of my friends that are live, but if I were to click on a separate friend who I'm like, say you, I know this dude's always live, right?
Right.
And I click on your name, live. So what it's showing you on your own queue of your own friends that are live, I don't think it's the full number.
Okay. I don't know what's going on, but normally I have at least minimum 200, 300 people in here, and for some reason it's been hovering under 100. I can't remember the last time I had a live where it didn't go above 100 for a substantial period of time, and this live has been like that. So, all right. Well, listen, I'm going to move it on from you, and I'm actually going to reset it just to see what happens, because that is weird. If folks are saying it's not showing me as live and the numbers are staying so low.
Yeah, exactly. I don't pretend to know the algorithm. I don't think even TikTok knows it, right? Facebook supposedly doesn't truly know the algorithm. But usually you've also got 30,000 likes. So the more people are engaged with you, the more it pushes your live.
Fair enough.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. If you reset, I'll come back in and listen to what you guys are doing. It's always good talking with you, brother.
It's always a pleasure. All right, catch you later, colonizer. All right, speaking of colonization, and I love the names. Me and Modern talk all the time, but with the recent death of the Queen over in England, Queen Elizabeth, I was going through some TikTok videos, and we'll go back to cash bail elimination in a minute. I guess if for folks who are saying it's just a weekend, I'll run with that. I won't reset the live. I'll just leave it at the notion that, yeah, it's Friday night and there's better shit to do than hang out in here. So we'll leave it at that. But in regards to the Queen of England passing away, listen, a lot of us have spoken positively. You know, the woman came across as a nice woman. She represented England very well and things like that. But considering the fact that she was born in the 1920s, became queen in the 1940s or something like that, obviously that's a time when a lot of countries were going through darker times. You understand an individual that looks like me talking about the 1940s as darker times, you could understand why. Well, England was no different. And it's amazing at how many folks on social media have spoken ill of the late Queen. And I'm bringing this up because I see what you posted in the comments there. Boston, Mass. I guess that's in Massachusetts. The colonization. The colonization. There is one woman that posted a video, and she named all of the countries that are either still colonized by England or formerly colonized. I gotta tell you, when you talk about CRT and all of this shit that you don't want taught in schools, I didn't know it was that many countries. It had to be a few dozen of them, a few dozen countries that England either still has colonized to some degree or once colonized. When I heard the list she ran it off, it definitely sounds like England was on course to try to rule the world. I mean, colonizing countries that are nowhere near Europe, you know, all the way down in Argentina and shit like that, countries that are thousands of miles away. And oddly enough, Queen Elizabeth was the queen of England during the times of a lot of that colonization. And when you look at it, because, you know, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, and I didn't really start paying attention to world affairs until the 90s and later. A lot of this stuff was, you know, in the past by then. But the woman is still alive. She was born in 1926. So she obviously lived through all of that shit. She was even around before World War II, old enough during World War II to clearly remember it because she was an adult. So you look at it and it's like, damn, I guess I could kind of understand a lot of folks who are speaking ill of her because she oversaw England doing some pretty bad shit. Even though now she comes across as Betty White, some sweet old lady, it's almost like, you know, you get your hands on a former SS guard or a former Nazi and he's 90 years old. And this is just our neighbor. He's a nice guy. We see him sitting on the porch all the time and smoking a cigar. He just reads the paper and he goes back in and never hurt anybody. And you find out back in the 40s, he was skinning people alive and making lampshades out of them. That's what it sounds like. When you really think about the shit that, I'm about to call her Betty White. When you think about the shit that the Queen of England actually oversaw back in the darker days, yeah, she almost comes across as a lightweight, you know, Gestapo or SS guard or something like that. She would have had some power to speak out against that stuff and stop it. I don't like going back and rehashing history and things like that oftentimes, but I guess I had never thought of it until I saw people speaking ill of her in such mass numbers. And then when that person ratted off the list of countries that they had colonized, I was like, yeah, that does kind of make sense. So back in the comments, let's get back on topic. He says lampshades. Funky Comedina, that actually happened. I know it sounds sarcastic to say skinning people alive and making lampshades. Look up the bitch of Buchenwald. Buchenwald was a concentration camp. I cannot remember this woman's name at this point, but I actually studied up on her. She was called the bitch of Buchenwald. She was a concentration camp guard, a female German concentration camp guard. And she would do crazy shit like that. skin human beings and use their skin for lampshades. So that is a real story. That is based on something that happened in real life. Anyway, and I see in the comments, Just a Dance, you've been to Buchenwald. I would love to go see Auschwitz or Buchenwald or some of those camps over there that are still standing for the memorial stuff. But yeah, that actually happened in real life. So that's why I brought that up. They were doing weird, really weird stuff, sewing people together to see how it worked, because obviously during war, there are all sorts of horrific injuries a soldier can suffer. So they were using their prisoners of war to literally advance medicinal uses. They were finding out if you could take an arm off of a person and sew it to their head, what would happen to it, how a person operates without anesthesia, how long it takes for a person to bleed to death. They were doing all that. Put you in a room, cut one of your arteries, tie you to the bed, and time how long it takes you to die. They were doing all of that shit during World War II. So I don't want to get way off the subject. I don't want to get too grim, but let me go back to the comments. Some folks are just sick. Yeah, I don't know how you could convince a group of people to overlook that stuff. I mean, even in this day and age, I don't care how, let's say, for instance, you're able to convince somebody that I'm a monkey or that I'm a lesser intelligent individual. We still currently have sympathy for dogs. You don't even want people, they don't even want you making makeup if you're using rabbits and mice to do it anymore. To not have sympathy during that period of time for a full-grown human being that can speak your language and say, listen, man, what you're doing is hurting me. I just can't even phantom that. It's one thing to hurt something that can't speak and you don't know it's in pain. But when a person can actually orate to you what you're doing and how bad it's making them feel, and you continue doing it anyway, let's just say hell must be a very crowded place right now. All right, going back to the comments, we're talking about bail elimination reform. I hate to go off on a tangent like that, but I often find myself shocked. I study World War II shit a lot. The Cowboy 5660. Trump never had a dog. Magoro 369 says Trump never had a dog. That's hilarious. Cowboy, you're looking good, sir. What's on your mind this evening?
Handsome liberal, thank you, sir. Hey, look, I just want to say I love your content, brother. I followed you for a long time. Most times when I see you live, I come in. I'll be the first one to tell you I don't always agree with you.
Okay, that's
but
fair.
At the same time, I can respect your opinion, and I love what you do and a lot of the positive vibes that you try to put out there.
Thank you. I needed that this evening. Got a small crowd here tonight. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Nothing but love for that.
Don't worry, we can probably pick up the pace with me in here, I promise you, because as you hear the way I talk, I mean, automatically people hear the way I talk, and they wanted to duck 500 IQ points. I mean, I'm just saying. But I'll use a famous line out of the movie Sweet Home Alabama. Y'all just keep this in mind. Just because I talk slow don't mean I'm stupid.
Okay. And you will never, ever see your humble correspondent, yours truly, talk down to a guest at all. Even when I vehemently disagree with guests, that's one thing we do not do on this program, is talk down or try to deface a guest. We let you get your point across. So you're always welcome here, man.
Hey, I appreciate it, brother. Like I said, man, I love it. I really enjoyed listening to your live tonight. But the topic, I did a video on this cash bail thing earlier.
Okay.
I see this as a horrible idea.
Elaborate.
To an extent, but with some of the crimes that I've seen, that they will no longer detain people for a period. You're arrested, you're booked, you're put in the system, and you're let go. Kidnapping, arson, second-degree manslaughter.
So,
put those people back on the street.
but let me ask you. Let's say, for instance, you get somebody on second-degree manslaughter. The guy got 2 DUIs. He's on the 3rd DUI, and he's charged with the 3rd DUI, and he kills somebody in the process. So you give him a manslaughter charge. He cannot afford bail. He sits in jail, and at his trial, his lawyer is able to show that he was actually taking a prescribed drug that set off the notion that he was under the influence, even though he had no clue the drug was going to do that. So he's found innocent. How do you give that man his time back? That's a violent crime. How do you get that man his time back?
But the thing of it is, though, is, all right, now, like you said, now this man was on a prescribed medication.
Right.
99% of medication, if it's going to make you drowsy, if it's going to make you under the influence, it tells you do not operate cars, heavy machinery, so forth. Don't drive, don't do nothing. Once you take this, sit your butt at home, watch TV, drink a cold beer, and relax.
Yeah, but you get my point is that it is possible.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's possible to say something and not know.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I'll be honest with you now, I'm one of those, like, I hate to take ibuprofen. I don't like taking medicines, period. You know, every once in a blue moon, I've lived an incredible life. I've done pro rodeo, I've done football, I've done pro wrestling. I'm 37 years old, and I have the body of a 70-year-old. I mean, I've beaten my body to pieces over the years.
Hey.
And I hate taking, but I understand that there's times that you'll mess up. But at the same time, as a responsible adult, should you not have read that label before you put something
Now,
else?
well, listen, how many folks do we have out here now that are addicted to narcotics, not through any fault of their own, but by doctors overprescribing shit that without telling them that it was addictive? That's how the whole opioid epidemic took place. And a lot of folks ended up doing things to obtain opioids that they became addicted to that they never knew, were never told were addictive. They got addicted. They started committing crimes to get more opioids, but they were not recreational drug users. They were not experimenters or anything. They became addicts due to their physician. Now, if that person goes out and commits a crime to get more of this substance that they never intended to get addicted to, and let's say a jury finds them not guilty because of what the doctors did to them. And by the way, more physicians should have served time for the opioid epidemic, and they did not. But I'm asking you, how do you give back time to people that spent when they're found not guilty? A lot of people are found not guilty every single day in courts all over America. How do you give them their time back?
I agree, and I mean, no, but at the same time, I will say this. No, our system's not perfect. What is that? Perfect example of what we're talking about. Our system's not perfect.
Okay.
But no system is. But at the same time, in a situation like that, you can't give that person their time back, honestly. But at the same time, now, I'm not saying, all right, like you said, if you go out and commit a crime, I understand the addiction. My fiance is a recovering addict. Both of my ex-wives are recovering addicts. Both of my parents are recovered alcoholics. Trust me, I have drug addicts in my family. I'm a poor white boy from the South. I've got several meth head cousins that live in trailers. I'm the stereotype of a Southern white boy.
Okay, not a problem.
In that same instance, though, you as a responsible adult, at some point in time, you've got to realize this is a problem.
If you actually have been introduced to a narcotic that's making you addicted and you don't even realize it because the doctor is telling you, I'll give you a perfect example. I had two of my.
But the point we was getting at was with the jail sentence. That's the point.
And that's the point I'm getting at as well.
All right, but you get that first time offense, nonviolent crime. All right, you went and stole a thing of pills from your grandmama. She got mad. She called the law, had you arrested for stealing narcotics. All right, look, you go to jail. You get arrested, go to jail, get booked in, something like that, right, son? But the thing of it is why release that person back on the street? If you know that person has a problem, instead of keeping them in jail, put them in a rehab facility until their court date or whatever. Because if you put them in jail, they still get access to it in jail.
Yeah.
If you release them out on the street, they got access to it on the street.
Yeah.
Put them in a rehab facility. Because if they're an addict by accident, and this causes them to realize I'm an addict, I got a problem, I need help. Instead of letting them sit in waiting to go to court, put them in a rehab facility and get their asses detoxed. That way, when we put them in court, hey, you did this, I'm going to charge you with a misdemeanor. It's not going to go against you heavy. You'll have this small of a fine to pay. Get out there and get your life together.
So
Now, instead of this person being put back on the street as an addict, now they're a recovered addict back on the street.
okay, so let me ask you this, because this is the question I asked earlier in the program. Which one is more concerning to you? Having a person that's charged with a violent crime being released with no bail that they could possibly reoffend, or having a person charged with a crime that is potentially innocent and serving a bunch of time in jail for a crime they didn't commit? Which one of those you think is more concerning to you?
In my honest opinion, it happens, but it's not a real high number of innocent people being jailed for a long time. So I would much rather, and look, I have been a victim of a false crime. Granted, I did not spend a whole lot of time in jail, but I will be the first one to tell you, I have done many overnighters, and the longest I've ever been locked up behind bars was 3 days, and I'm gonna tell you now, it didn't take me but 12 hours to realize I'm not meant to be caged.
Yeah, but even in 3 days, and that's a short time, obviously, when it comes to incarceration. But even in 3 days, you can lose your job in those 3 days. That quickly, your entire source of income can be eradicated in those 3 days.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. But at the same time, that is where, as a society, as a country, we need to change.
What about the idea?
Once you're proven innocent,
Yeah,
once you're proven innocent and you have no charges, then, you know, hey, the situations that I've been a part of and that I've seen that this exact scenario happen in, 95% of the time, those people get their job back.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about. What about the notion of?
I've seen in my experience.
Okay.
I live in a small ass southern
All right.
town too.
Okay, fair enough. What about? It depends on what you're charged with too, because if you get charged with a violent crime, a lot of employers, just to save their own reputation, they don't give a shit if you're innocent or not. They gonna get rid of you. Like if you, like for instance, you see these sport athletes, these professional athletes. The minute some woman accuses them of a crime or something like that, the team starts deciding if they're going to cut them or not. You don't get to go through the court process and prove your innocence or be found guilty. Your employer may cut you right away just because you're bad for business. So what about the notion that we believe in you're innocent until proven guilty? Do you believe in that?
I do, to an extent, with certain things.
Give me an example.
Like I said, petty crimes, I'm not necessarily against, you know, hey, look, you know, or like you said, desperate times call for desperate measures. Look, I was tired of hearing my baby cry. I went to Walmart and stole some food. No, that person put their name down. I mean, everybody, you commit a crime, regardless of the reason, you have to face justice, one way or the other. But you do this, you know, that person walks free. I mean, you know what I'm saying, until court. But at the same time now, do I want somebody convicted or charged with murder? But at the same time, on the street, no, I don't. But at the same time, we have to look at it. Now, this person being charged with murder, what kind of evidence do we have to hold him?
Could be eyewitness testimony. I mean, because a lot of times it could be snitches. It could be anything. People get arrested for murder on some of those.
It's one of these deals that now, if, all right, just for instance, say, you got picked up because, hey, this man looked like so-and-so. The cops hold you in jail within 12, I almost say, because my brother was a cop, a lot of my family are cops, I have a deep history with law enforcement. You got
meth addicts for you got meth addict for friends and family that's cops.
I got them on both sides of the law, brother.
Okay.
When I tell you, I'm that stereotypical small town southern white boy. I got buddies
Okay.
And I got brothers that are cops. You know what I'm saying? I got them on both sides of the aisle. I'm from both sides of the damn track. I grew up right in the middle.
You sound like you sound like you got a Dukes of Hazzard scenario going on down there.
I pretty much do, bro. I mean, look, hey, Dukes of Hazzard was supposedly filmed in Hazzard County, Georgia, which actually Hazzard County was Conyers, and Conyers is about an hour north of me.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that. It's odd. And it's crazy. Obviously, me and Colonizer was thinking the same thing because he put Hazzard County down there as well. That's funny. Okay, so in regards to violent crimes, if a person is charged with a violent crime, you believe they should be treated like they're guilty until proven innocent then? Because if you're in favor of them being...
Not guilty until, not innocent until proven guilty, or not guilty until proven innocent. In a situation of a violent crime, I would rather be safe than sorry. So tell me, what kind of evidence do you have on this person? Do we have video footage? Do we have photographic footage? Do we have multiple eyewitnesses?
But that's all trial, though.
To the local Walmart.
But that's all. You're holding trial before the trial. You're basically, as a citizen, is like, okay, well, let me see the evidence. That's what a judge, a jury, and the prosecutor and the defense attorney does. You're holding trial on the person before the trial.
The trial is whether or not you are charged, whether or not you were sent to prison. This is to see whether or not, I mean, and if you want to be honest with you, put it before a judge immediately. Something like that should go before a judge immediately. That is not something a person should not have to sit in jail for weeks or months waiting on a bail hearing. A bail hearing should happen, like I said, I was in jail for 3 days, and my 3 days in jail was from the time my ass got locked up until I went before the judge and got released 8 hours later.
Okay.
So, that right on, now don't get me wrong, I will tell you now, those 3 days made me understand right quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah.
I like to be able to go to the bathroom when I want to in private. I like to be able to sleep with both my eyes shut.
Yeah.
Okay, being in jail, being in the cage don't fit me. But
Okay.
a 24 to 30 to a 72-hour window for a bail hearing is not out of the question.
So
You are charged with a violent crime.
So what do you think if the state does indeed hold somebody? Let's say a judge thinks there's enough evidence to put you in jail with no bail, and it comes out during trial a year, 2, 3 years later that you are absolutely innocent. What do you think the state should do to make you whole again after losing maybe your marriage, losing your job, your home, everything? 3 years in prison, you've lost probably, or in jail, you've probably lost just about everything you have. What should the state do to people like that? Because there's a lot of people like that.
There's where social programs come in.
Meaning what?
I am a fan of social programs to an extent. I don't agree with all of them. I don't like all of them. But in an instant like that, that is where a county, a city, a state, whatever, federally, has a system in place. If that happens, if at the beginning you find enough evidence to hold this person without bail, but 6, 8 months later in the trial, before trial, whatever, you discover this person's innocent. The marriage, for example, I'm going to say this. If your spouse loved you, if it was true love and a true marriage, your spouse would have been by your side.
That's not very sympathetic, but keep going.
But as far as the rest of it, your job, your house, if you lost that due to the fact of being held without bond while innocent, there should be a program in place, federally or state level, to help you get back on your feet and get you back going. And the state and the government should write you letters of recommendation for any damn job you want, letting that employer know this man was innocent, we screwed up.
What about if you got a job, 50, 60, 70,000 a year, whatever you're earning, what do they do about the 3 years of lost income that you would have earned?
Social program. If you were held in jail for 3, 5, 10, the amount of time that your ass is held in prison, when you were innocent, 100% innocent, it comes out,
the state screwed up, the prosecutor screwed up, whatever. You were falsely imprisoned. The state should be responsible for you paying whatever salary you were making at the time for however many years your ass was locked up.
I don't think you get him to agree with that. I agree. I get what you're saying, because you're going to have people like the O.J. Simpson types. O.J. Simpson, even though he was found not guilty, most of America believes he did try to slice that woman's head off. So at the end of the day, because he was held and ultimately found not guilty, he would qualify for what you're suggesting. All of his salary that he lost, because I believe he spent at least 2 years in jail waiting for that trial to come up. I believe they had O.J. Simpson in jail for about a year or two. He would qualify for all of that back. What do you do in a situation like that? Because he was officially found not guilty.
I agree, but at the same time, there's a big difference between a millionaire and a common person.
You're still ruining people. It doesn't matter if he's a millionaire or not. How much money did O.J. Simpson lose by being charged?
How much did O.J. help his case? How much did O.J. help his case when he come out and wrote the book, If I Had Done It?
Yeah, but that's wait a minute, but that's like 10 years after the fact, though. I mean, that book, If I Did It, was 10 years after this was all over with. So I don't know if you can really bring that up. I'm talking about right after you're found not guilty. This guy lost his Hertz commercial contract. He was in airplane movies. He had a Screen Actors Guild card, so he lost all of his Hollywood contracts. How do you make him whole for all of the stuff that was taken away from what turns out was an innocent man?
Better be a hell of a social program.
You gonna pay him back all of those millions?
Yeah, but there has to be. Just like with anything, just like with Medicaid, just like with Social Security, there has to be a cap. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I get it, we screwed up, and maybe there's some way, and look, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but there's got to be a way, but at the same time,
there is a way. There is a way. The way to stop it is exactly what I have on the wall behind me. Stop locking up people that haven't been found guilty. That's the way.
But the thing of it is now what happens when you have that murderer, that guy that walked in and slaughtered a mother, a husband, 3 kids, and a family dog? Do you really want him back on the street in your neighborhood with your family?
All I can tell you is bring him to trial that much faster. If you're afraid of him doing something, bring him to trial faster. Don't let him be on the street as long. But if you want to find a way to stop screwing it up,
at the same time, you have to look at with prosecutors now, with DAs and prosecutors. That's a lot easier said than done, because in today's society, like you said, you have to prove without a shadow of a doubt. And a lot of the times, there's eyewitnesses to these murders, but depending on where they happen and why they happen, witnesses are scared to talk. Evidence is hard to come by. We all know, and you know just as good as I do, there's people that you know when you see what happened, they're guilty.
yeah. Well,
but in order to get a show enough conviction, the evidence has to be spot on. There can be no holes in it. So that takes time.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're willing to make folks that were found guilty whole, I'm not talking social programs, I'm talking about making them whole. If you're willing to do that, I can agree with it. But if a person is found guilty and they lose anything because of it, then I'm not a fan of it. I think you should have to make the person completely whole for all the damage you did, at least as much as you can.
And that's why I say, and like I said, but there has to be some limit. Look, unfortunately, in like today's world, look at the NFL. How many players are accused of sexual assault and then are later found innocent?
Yeah. That does happen.
Now, how is the government, which now, the federal government, hey, I look at it this way, if we can send $100 billion to Ukraine, then we should be able to put, we can have a system, but there has to be a cap on it. Because, of course, if I've got a $28 million a year professional football player, and he was for 3 years, and then later he's found innocent, enough evidence presented against him in jail, but then something comes out and he is found innocent. How are we expected to make up all $70 million
Okay.
in all crap?
All right, yeah, I get your point. All right, Cowboy, listen, I'm gonna have to drop you though, because you're breaking up, but I did hear your point, man. All right, catch you later.
Thank you so much for letting me in the box, brother. Love your content. Y'all have a good one.
Absolutely a pleasure. Catch you next time. All right, looking in the comments, Nevia America said, can't we talk about Trump? And she's suggesting that, or he is suggesting that that is why the views are low tonight. I don't know why the views were so low tonight. That's, like I said, it's generally not the case here. Maybe it's the subject. I think this is the reason a lot of my topics that we discuss here, I talk to the folks about, this is stuff that particularly the right wing, because that is a she. Okay, Nevia, she. I didn't know. I didn't want to get the pronouns wrong, Nevia. But most of the topics presented here, because I make it clear my preferred audience is MAGA, this is often the stuff that is being talked about in right-wing circles. This cash bail elimination is something that the Republicans are inflamed about. It's being talked about quite a bit. So it's not like, an off culture or some crazy ass topic you're bringing up that nobody is talking about. It's being mentioned. And at the end of the day, it's likely to be picked up in other liberal states. There is a lot of liberals that believe that a lot of innocent people are being affected by treating folks as if they are guilty until innocent. And you know how the liberals are on protecting the people. The right tends to be in favor of protecting victims and punishing criminals. To a fault. I'm fine with punishing criminals and not letting folks on the street and things like that. But I'm not a fan of over punishing people, criminalizing any and every damn thing you can come up with under the sun. And now, of course, what we have in America, which is making money, financial gains off of incarceration. I'm not a fan of that. People believe what they do. Use your comments to share. I found you on live. Some said no, says Boston. I don't know what happened tonight. It's all right. Listen, every live can't do it. I'm going to go with what some of the folks suggested. It's a Friday night. Summer's coming to an end. People got better shit to do than to stop in. I, for a moment, was not going to be on here, but I'm running this simulcast on YouTube. I'll give you a quick explanation here. This is going to ultimately move to YouTube. The Handsome Liberal on YouTube. Right now, this exact broadcast is also being shown on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and type in The Handsome Liberal, you'll see this same live broadcast. Now, the goal is because on YouTube, you get widescreen format. As you can see on here, you got a vertical format. So from side to side, you cannot see as much. The ultimate goal on YouTube, I have a monitor that's going to be about 4 times the size of the monitor you see behind me, because I like to illustrate a lot of things on the monitor. And on TikTok, the monitor is so small, you can't see most of the shit. So on YouTube, you will be able to see it. But at the same time, also on YouTube, based on my own personal experience, the censorship is not as strict as it is on TikTok. I've had videos and comments censored on TikTok that are still posted on YouTube. So the censorship is not that strong as well. There's not a lot of people watching me on YouTube. I see that Blood Matthews in the comments. I am monitoring YouTube as well right now. And there's been some comments coming in. I see Don is over there, Moochman, Stuart Donnelly, but there's not a lot of comments coming on YouTube. But I am on YouTube as well. Anybody that goes over there, I encourage you to subscribe to that channel, because that's where the future is going to be. Real quick explanation. I went out and paid good money for this Canon camera, 4K. You can stream right online from this little ass camera in my hand. Got much better microphone equipment, so the audio will be better. And like I said, it will be in widescreen format. So that's what is the goal of what's going to happen in the future. I often enjoy talking to you guys, particularly my MAGA audience, and we chop it up in here pretty good. We do have really good conversations. You guys bring the good passion, and I enjoy talking to you guys, regardless if we agree or disagree. We walk away from here enjoying our interaction with each other. So if I can get together and present a better product to you, the content I think is pretty good based on the responses, based on the compliments you've seen the last guy there. Appreciate the gifts as well. I see Boston is sending me roses. Definitely the gifts come in handy because as you see, we flip it around and try to put it back into the content. So always appreciate that. We are a huge proponent of First Amendment free speech. This is not a live where you're going to get banned for your opinions. You're not going to have an echo chamber where it's all liberals talking about liberal shit or all Republicans talking about Republican shit. Everyone gets to talk about their shit. As Christopher Walken once yelled out in The King of New York, you're all welcome. That's how we do it here. So, yeah, that is going to be the goal, is to move things over to YouTube. In, like I said, in 4K. Right now it's in 720 on a tablet, so the video is not as good, but once we put the Canon and all of this lens shit, I gotta figure it out. This is not a cheap camera, by the way. Once I get all that figured out, we'll be able to present a much better program. So I do appreciate you guys that do ride with me. As I often say, you could be anywhere you want to be on social media, so the fact that you're rolling with your boy, I cannot do anything but thank you for that. So with that, I am going to conclude this live for the evening. Cash bail elimination is the law in Illinois. If the Republicans are not able to reverse it, far less innocent folks will spend time in jail that should not have. Unfortunately, there will be some criminals that will use this system to reoffend. What is the solution? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say because we don't want folks reoffending, but we don't want innocent folks spending time in jail. So there is no middle ground on this. There is no middle ground on this. The systems that still have bail are still locking up people that are ultimately found not guilty and thus innocent. And then, of course, Illinois, with a city like Chicago that is rampant with crime, they're letting out people who are going to ultimately reoffend. Good example before I let you go, the guy in Memphis we talked about before, Cleotha Thurston or something like that. He killed a white woman, a black African-American guy in Memphis, Tennessee, kidnapped a woman while she was jogging in broad daylight. A couple days later, she was found dead. He's been charged with murder. And folks are suggesting in that case, if he was in jail, it wouldn't have happened. Now, Cleotha, the guy who kidnapped and killed her, in the year 2000, when he was only 16 years of age, he kidnapped an attorney and held him at gunpoint. So this guy has a history of this. For the kidnapping of that attorney in the year 2003, they gave Cleotha 20 years in prison. So he went in prison in 2003 and he ended up getting out in 2020. So he served 17 years of that 20-year sentence. And here it is in 2022, he kidnapped another woman and this time he took her life. So folks are suggesting, well, if he was still in prison, this would not have happened. Here's my rant on that. As opposed to always suggesting people spend more and more time in jail, why don't we hold the correctional facilities accountable for not correcting any damn body? He's given a 16-year-old 20 years in prison for a crime in which nobody died. That's not a slap on the wrist. Yeah, he's a bad dude, I get that. But he got 20 years in prison for a crime where nobody lost their lives. That's not a slap on the wrist. They gave that dude plenty of fucking time. You need to ask, why is the correctional facilities in this country not correcting anyone? Why are there so many people getting out of prison and going back in a very short period of time? Right now, the recidivism rate in America is this. After 1 year in prison, 50% of inmates that are let out come back to prison. They reoffend. Within 5 years, 70% have returned back to prison. Obviously, our penal institutions are government funded. Why aren't we demanding some type of account? How could you be a correctional facility with a failure rate that high and keep getting fucking contracts? If you are a correctional institution, you should be held account to how many people you are correcting. If 70% of them are coming back in 5 years, shut that place down. Shut that place down. You're failing at correcting these people. If you're holding people that are never going to get out, then you're not held accountable to correcting them because they're going to spend their life in prison. But make no mistake about it, I believe about 86%, if I'm correct, 86% of inmates incarcerated today will one day get out. So correcting people is paramount. Otherwise, just like we're talking about now with bail elimination, you don't want people reoffending. So if you put a guy in jail for 15, 20 years and you harden the shit out of him, and then you let him back out in society and he has not been corrected, chances of him reoffending violently are pretty damn high. We need to address that. And until we address that, as Nakiva Scott is saying in the comments, reform or correction, until that's done, get used to crime. Get used to crime. Don't they have programs in prison? Don 1964. You don't have enough follow-up. You need follow-up to ensure that when a person gets out. Okay, good example. If you go to college, when you get out there as an alumni association, there are programs in place to help you get a job and things like that. Also, if a college has a ridiculously high dropout rate, the government will stop allowing students to go to that school and qualify for student loans. We're not going to send money to a school where 70% of the students are dropping out because obviously they're not going to be able to afford to pay the loans back. That's the way we need to do penal institutions. If 70% of your inmates are coming back, you're not very effective at correcting people. We already know what could be done to help this shit. Remove some of the damn hurdles that ex-cons deal with that make it more likely they're going to reoffend. That would be the easiest thing. Remove some of the hurdles. Guy gets out making minimum wage because nobody will hire him. Don't straddle him with a bunch of restitution and all these other fines and fees he got to pay. He's making $10 an hour. You think you're going to get all that money from him and keep him on the straight and narrow? It's not going to happen. So we could easily make this shit. We could easily reduce the recidivism rate. But before that happens, you have to have people that actually care. Most Americans want a criminal to spend a lifetime of misery. And that is what we set out to do when we incarcerate people. Anyhow, I do have to go. As usual, I'll catch you guys on the flip side. We'll do it tomorrow. Tonight was a small audience. I appreciate you guys. Gotta go. Looking at YouTube, I do see a few of you did come over here. Now we're off of TikTok. I just want to see you guys on YouTube. I appreciate you coming over. See Salvage One Bus Life. Looking in the comments, they are spending money to schools that have classes and degrees for comparative dance and theatrical theater. Of course, they will keep funding schools with high dropout rates. Not always. That's, and I do agree with you that there are a lot of schools that offer bullshit degrees. Under the Obama administration, he did start tackling that. Whereas if your school has these high dropout rates and things like that, your school no longer qualifies for federal funding. As a result, schools did get closed. A lot of these for-profit Everest, ITT tech schools, yeah, they did get shut down. So that actually did happen. Looking in here quick, because they don't correct anything, says John Bradley. Yeah. Don't forget to tell people to click the bell so they know when you come on. Yes, that is a very good piece of advice, John Bradley on YouTube. Click the bell, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you are notified when I am going live. I appreciate that input, Mr. Bradley, and welcome to the program. So anyway, folks, I do appreciate you guys riding with me on YouTube as I figure all this out. Like I said, I went out and bought equipment, got the tripod and all of that, so that I can give it to you at the right angle and all of that and expand this shit. And I'll probably still do for a while the simulcast on TikTok as well. But YouTube will be the primary broadcast location hopefully get that up and running in a few months and do it here. Just because I believe I can deliver a better product on YouTube. Better audio, better video, 4K video, and things like that. So I'll end it for this, or end it for tonight, and I'll catch you guys hopefully tomorrow. Enjoy your evening.